The grand chamber of the Galactic Council gleamed with bioluminescent crystals that pulsed in rhythmic patterns, casting ethereal shadows across the assembled delegates. For 3 standard cycles, representatives from 47 species had gathered here, suspended in the neutral zone between contested territories. The purpose was simple: negotiate peace with humanity before their expansion threatened the delicate balance of power that had stood for millennia. Elsa Martinez sat at the human delegation's table, her fingers drumming an impatient rhythm against the polished surface. As Earth's chief diplomatic officer, she had spent countless hours preparing for these talks, hopping against hope that reason would prevail. Beside her, Commander Verk Singh reviewed tactical displays on his neural interface, his jaw set in a hard line that spoke of barely contained frustration. "They're stalling again," Verk muttered, his voice low enough that only Elsa could hear through their encrypted channel. "Third time the Zentari have requested an extended recess to consult their elders." Elsa's eyes flickered toward the crystalline beings occupying the far side of the chamber. The Zentari, ancient and arrogant, had dominated galactic politics for over 10,000 years. Their translucent forms shimmered with an inner light that many species found hypnotic, even divine. To Elsa, they simply looked smug. "Patience, Commander," she replied, though her own reserves were wearing thin. "We need to give diplomacy every possible chance." High Counselor Zareth, a towering Zentari whose crystalline structure bore the scars of countless political battles, raised one of his many appendages. The chamber fell silent, the ambient hum of translation matrices the only sound. "The Council has reviewed humanity's latest proposal," Zareth announced, his voice resonating through multiple dimensions simultaneously. "We find it unacceptable. Humanity must withdraw from all systems beyond your original solar territory. You will cease military expansion immediately. You will submit to Council oversight for all technological development. These are our terms." Elsa felt her blood run cold. These weren't negotiation terms, they were demands for complete surrender. She glanced at Verk, whose dark eyes had gone flat and dangerous. "With respect, High Counselor," Elsa began, rising from her seat, "humanity came to these talks in good faith. We've offered compromise after compromise. We've proposed shared governance of disputed systems, technology exchanges, and mutual defense pacts. What you're demanding is our complete subjugation." A ripple of what might have been amusement passed through the Zentari delegation. Zareth's form pulsed with colors that the translation matrix rendered as condescension. "You misunderstand your position, human," he said. "Your species has existed for mere moments in galactic terms. You stumbled into interstellar travel barely a century ago. We have forgotten more about warfare and governance than your entire civilization has ever learned. You should be grateful we offer you any terms at all, rather than simply removing the problem." The threat hung in the air like poison gas. Around the chamber, other species shifted uncomfortably. The insectoid creche clicked their mandibles in what might have been agreement or concern. The aquatic Pelshara burbled in their water-filled containment spheres, their translation coming through garbled and uncertain. Verk stood slowly, and despite being physically smaller than most beings in the chamber, his presence seemed to fill the space. A decorated war hero who had personally led humanity's defense against the creche incursion at Proxima Station, he commanded respect through sheer force of will. "You threaten us," Verk asked quietly, "after we came here seeking peace." "We state facts," Zareth replied. "The Council controls 70% of known space. Our combined fleets number in the millions. Your entire species occupies fewer than 200 systems. The mathematics are simple, even for primitives." Elsa saw the moment Verk's decision crystallized. She'd worked with him long enough to recognize the subtle shift in his posture, the way his breathing slowed and steadied. She'd seen that same transformation before he'd ordered the desperate gambit that saved Proxima Station. Elsa, Verk said, still staring at Zareth. How many times have we revised our proposal? 17 times, Commander, she replied, her voice steady despite the trembling in her chest. And how many concessions has the Council made? None, sir. Verk nodded slowly. Then, with deliberate precision, he reached down and gathered the data crystals containing humanity's proposals, their compromise positions, their olive branches. He held them up so the entire chamber could see. Then I believe we're done here, he said, and crushed the crystals in his augmented hand. The sharp crack echoed through the chamber like a gunshot. Several delegates flinched. Zareth's crystalline form flared with what the translation matrix rendered as outrage. You dare, the High Counselor began. I dare, Verk interrupted, his voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. I dare because you've mistaken patience for weakness. You've confused our desire for peace with inability to wage war. That was your first mistake. Elsa felt her heart hammering, but she stood beside Verk, presenting a united front. Humanity withdraws from these negotiations, she announced formally. We came seeking partners. We found only tyrants. We will remember this day. The human delegation turned to leave. Behind them, Zareth's voice boomed with crystalline fury. You will regret this. The combined might of the Council will crush your pathetic species. We will reduce your worlds to ash. Verk paused at the threshold, looking back over his shoulder. A cold smile played across his features. You're welcome to try, he said, but you might want to ask the Kresh how that worked out for them. The insectoid delegation shifted nervously, their compound eyes reflecting the memory of defeat. 6 standard months later, the Galactic Council realized the magnitude of their mistake. The war began not with humanity's fleets attacking Council positions, but with something far more devastating. They simply vanished. Every human colony, every outpost, every military installation went dark simultaneously. The Council's surveillance networks, sophisticated systems that had monitored thousands of species for millennia, suddenly found nothing but empty space where human civilization had been. It's impossible, Zareth insisted, his crystalline form flickering with uncertainty. An entire species cannot simply disappear. Where are their heat signatures, their communications, their quantum wake trails? The answer came 3 weeks later when a Council expeditionary fleet arrived at what had been humanity's second-largest colony, New Bangalore. They found the planet intact, its cities standing empty but undamaged. In the central plaza of the capital, they discovered a simple message carved in a material that resisted all scanning. You wanted us gone from these systems, we've complied. But understand this, we're not running, we're preparing. When we return, it won't be to negotiate. The Council's military commanders demanded immediate action. Fleets were mobilized, millions of ships converging on human space to root out wherever they were hiding. It was the largest military operation in galactic history. It was also a trap. The ambush came from nowhere and everywhere. Human ships appeared through quantum tunnels that shouldn't have existed, using technology that violated every known law of physics. They struck with precision that suggested they'd been watching Council movements the entire time, waiting for exactly this moment. The Battle of the Veiled Nebula lasted 47 hours and cost the Council 60% of their assembled fleet. Human ships fought with a ferocity that terrified species who had never experienced true desperation warfare. They rammed larger vessels when ammunition ran low, pilots ejecting at the last moment in escape pods that immediately turned into autonomous weapon platforms. But it wasn't just their willingness to sacrifice that shocked the Council. It was their innovation. In 6 months, humanity had developed weapon systems that countered technology the Zenhari had spent 10,000 years perfecting. Kinetic projectiles coated in exotic matter that passed through energy shields like they weren't there. Viral subroutines that turned the Council's own AI systems against them. psychological warfare broadcasts that exploited specific neurological vulnerabilities in each species. Commander Verk led the assault personally, his flagship emerging from quantum space directly above the Council's command carrier. As Zendhari vessels scrambled to respond, Elsa's voice came through on open channels, broadcast to every ship in the system. "You called us primitives," she said calmly. "You mocked our brief history, but you forgot something important about young species. We're still learning, still adapting, still evolving. We don't cling to ancient glories. We create new ones." The Council command carriers' shields flickered and died under concentrated human fire. Zareth himself broadcast a desperate message. "Please, we can negotiate. We were hasty, we." "Now you want to negotiate," Verk's voice cut through, sharp as broken glass. "After threatening to reduce our worlds to ash, after 6 months of hunting us through space. No, High Counselor, the time for words has passed." But humanity didn't destroy the command carrier. Instead, they disabled it, captured it, and left it drifting with minimal life support. Inside, they left another message for the Council to find. "We could have killed you all. Remember that. Remember that we showed more mercy than you ever offered us. The next time you encounter a primitive species, remember what happened when you mistook humanity's peace for weakness." The war continued for another standard year, but the outcome was never in doubt after the Veiled Nebula. One by one, Council species sued for separate peace. The Grand Alliance that had stood for millennia fractured under the pressure of fighting an enemy they didn't understand. When the final treaty was signed, on terms far more favorable to humanity than anyone had imagined possible, Elsa and Verk stood once more in the Council chamber. Zareth, diminished and humbled, could barely maintain his crystalline cohesion. "How?" he asked simply. "How did you advance so quickly?" Elsa smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You really don't understand humans at all, do you? You threatened our families, our children, our future. What did you think we would do? Give up? No, High Counselor. When you threaten everything a human loves, you don't make them weak. You make them dangerous." Verk added quietly, "You forced us to choose between peace and survival. We chose survival. But we'll never forget that you made that choice necessary." As the human delegation departed, leaving behind a transformed galactic order, the other species watched in silence. The Zendhari's 10,000-year dominance was broken. In its place, a new understanding emerged. Humanity wasn't just another species to be managed and controlled. They were something the galaxy hadn't seen in ages, a force of nature, unpredictable and unstoppable when provoked. The Council had wanted to put humanity in its place. Instead, they'd created the very threat they'd feared most. And as Elsa had promised, they would remember this day, every species would, as the moment they learned that some species should never be pushed to the brink. Because humanity, when given no choice but to fight, would not only survive, they would prevail. And